Here's a little fun fact for you. When I first reviewed The Last Jedi 2 years ago, I gave it a really good review. I gave it 4 out of 5, if I remember correctly. Let's just hope this review ages better than that. Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, is once again directed by J.J. Abrams, and it follows Ray, Finn, Poe, and the gang as they follow to wrap up this saga, this new trilogy of Star Wars, and undo the evil that was The Last Jedi. And there's a lot that goes on in this movie. There's a lot of nothing that happens, but also a lot of extra stuff. But we're going to start off positive. First of all, in the best and worst ways possible, this movie feels like a course correct of The Last Jedi. Meaning there's less unique out there elements of The Last Jedi, but there's more by the numbers Star Wars stuff we're used to seeing. Blaster fights, galactic TIE fighter battles, and of course lightsaber duels are back in full force, and they more or less do it in the same way you're used to seeing. There's less radical ideas about the Force, no Laura Dern in a purple wig explaining to Poe how bad of a pilot he is, no terrible 30-minute filler sequence of social justice animal freeing, and no brutal takedowns of previous Star Wars idols like Luke. In that sense, it's an easy watch. It's a very enjoyable action movie. There are very enjoyable scenes, and the visuals, as usual, are pretty top-notch. This is Star Wars. The production value is always going to be there. This movie looks and sounds like it should. John Williams' score once again slaps, although it's more of the same we've heard. I liked some of the character arcs and at least where they were going on paper. This being the concluding chapter of a trilogy, there are a lot of story arcs that had to come around and wrap themselves up with a nice little bow and completely finish off, and some of them I really liked. The performances across the board were solid. Daisy Ridley once again does a really good job as Rey. Adam Driver is once again giving a really good performance as Kylo Ren. If you haven't seen Marriage Story, I'm just going to plug that real quick. He's phenomenal in that movie too. John Boyega and Oscar Isaac once again return as Finn and Poe respectively. I like Finn more in this movie than The Last Jedi because his character wasn't completely just used for comic relief and for a side plot. He does get a lot more screen time in this movie. They do give him more to do, but he still kind of feels like just a passenger. I like what they did with Poe in this movie. He has to grow more than a character. He definitely grows more than Finn in this movie. He takes more responsibility, and he was pretty cool. All right, what you guys came for. Let's talk about the negatives. First of all, that MCU Disney brand of humor is back in this movie in its full force. There's so much humor in this movie that just didn't land for me. And that especially comes for the droids. BB-8, C-3PO, R2, they're all here, they're all back, and yeah, they get most of the jokes, and they just weren't funny to me. I don't know. So the humor didn't really land for me. Also, the pacing of this movie is pretty trash. This movie's pacing is so frenetic, it's just straight up distracting. They're like, all right, we gotta go to get this thing. We gotta go to this planet to get this MacGuffin. This is gonna take up a good 2/3 of the movie. So we go back and forth between planets, and it's like, oh, look, we finally got what we're looking for, and it means nothing. Pacing in this movie is so breakneck, you don't even really feel like, you never feel grounded, you never feel attached to the plot that's going on, because as soon as you get invested in a single conflict, they gotta go and solve something else. This is definitely one of those situations where I could tell there was a lot of rewrites and reshoots because it just lacks focus. You can't really tell what the point of it all is until the very end. Like I said, this is more by-the-number Star Wars you're used to seeing, and when it comes to the plot, I just felt like there was no risks really taken, and no conflict felt very organic, and it all felt really rushed. It felt like every other main decision they were making with the plot was just for a general crowd-pleasing moment. Which coincides with the several stories I've heard that this movie had failed test screenings that made them reshoot and rewrite several scenes. You can kind of feel that, because especially towards the end, you're like, yeah, that's a crowd pleaser. That's not necessarily needed for the story. That's just to make everyone happy. The Last Jedi kind of threw a lot of old traditional Star Wars ideas out the window, and in this movie you can kind of tell they're trying to reel everything back in, which means, of course, you know it, Retcons galore. Some of them I liked because of the decisions in The Last Jedi. Others I'm like, that doesn't make any sense and you're just adding on for the sake of plot. So yeah, the story was super rushed. Some of the characters don't get the shine they need. There's tons of retcons. The MCU Disney brand of humor really didn't work for me, and it doesn't feel like they were taking a lot of risks. They were just trying to make everyone happy. But in that, there's still an enjoyable movie with some pretty good performances and action to be seen. This is not an offensive movie. This is very passable. This is just very milquetoast, as I like to say. Just borderline average, what you're used to seeing. In that sense, I can't really be mad at it. It was an enjoyable movie. I just wish it left me feeling more. This movie didn't really get me feeling anything.
This is by far the most general, crowd-pleasing Star Wars movie since The Force Awakens. It plays it extremely safe with some character arcs and plot threads, but is still quite entertaining throughout. I just wish there was more of a definitive ending and defining moments for some of these characters. I'm going to give Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker 3 out of 5 stars.
So those are my overall thoughts on Star Wars 9: The Rise of Skywalker. I feel like I have to do a spoiler review on this movie because there's so much that happens I just want to talk about a little bit more. But if you want to see that on your way out, make sure you leave a like on this video, comment what's your favorite Star Wars movie, have you seen this movie yet, and what'd you think about it? As always, I am Pac. Thanks so much for hearing my perspective, and I'm out for now.